James White, 8130. What I feel I felt my film did in terms of codes and conventions was that it tried to stray away from the typical zombie films where it was mostly just about trying to kill the zombies and get to survival. Um, in my film, my character is dying, which I felt was very a very important aspect to the story, but also to make the character much more relatable. The character has had no survival training or any kind of fight training, and because of that, he has succumbed to pretty much death. What I think was done well in this film was how you could relate to the character more, but also get a sense of what he's going through and why he's trying to remember the happier times in his life before the apocalypse. Um, However, sticking to the codes and conventions, I did want to make it seem like a very barren, desolate landscape. Even though my film only had two zombies, that was more due to the budget and crew restraints which I had, but I felt it worked rather well. Um, I also really liked in my film how the zombies actually looked. A lot of films these days actually try to have as much gore as you possibly can, but I try to stick to a very minimalistic approach, not only to gain a much larger audience, but also to make it much more realistic. In real life, if someone gets cut, then there isn't always blood gushing or things like that. The little bit of gore which I did have, I tried to make it look more unrealistic, more like a kind of a hyper gore where it's not very natural, but it is much more accessible to people. People don't freak out, and also I'm not trying to disturb anyone with the images which I'm putting on screen, and I'm also wanting to make it so much more accessible to people. Another thing which I wanted to show was the flashbacks. A lot of flashbacks aren't used in zombie films because a lot of audiences try not to care about the characters. But because my character was dying, I wanted my audience to feel sorry for him and also to care for him, which I felt was a much better approach to the film. Uh, and also how they could relate to him once again. Um, Another feature which I also tried to get across was not the violence, but also more of an eerie kind of feel to it, using a lot of a soundtrack, where which was inspired a lot by the early Resident Evil games, where you felt very claustrophobic and also very tense. You didn't know what was around each corner, and the music kind of emphasized that. So you would be waiting, listening to the music, wondering what's going to happen, and I tried to use that in my film, building it up to the very end. Thank you.